The hall of the Selentho Palace glimmered with blue crystal light. Its walls carved from ancient stone, it sang faintly when touched human envoys had been summoned to discuss a fragile alliance. And among them stood a young soldier named Leon, who carried himself with a quiet calm. He wore standard exo-armor, matte silver, and without decoration. And he kept his posture straight as the alien court whispered about the newcomers. The Selentho people valued age and lineage, and they had little respect for species that rose quickly, without centuries of tradition. At the center of the hall stood Princess Reali, only 19, yet already burdened with authority. A fact that filled her equally with pride and youthful stubbornness. Rael's eyes glowed faint violet and narrowed as she observed. Leon, she had expected an impressive warrior, perhaps one of the human legends known for brawn and fury. But instead she saw a quiet soldier who bowed politely. Her disappointment turned swiftly into arrogance. She walked around Leon with slow steps, her robe trailing behind her like a stream of stars. "Is this the strength of humankind?" she asked, and her voice echoed through the hall like a cold wind. The courtiers watched eagerly, waiting for the human soldier to defend himself. Leon remained silent, not out of fear, but discipline. He had been taught that silence held power when pride tried to provoke reaction. He simply kept his gaze forward and waited for the formal proceedings to resume. Yet Reali was not finished. She stepped closer and tapped the shoulder of his armor with her polished staff. "Perhaps the humans think metal can protect what they cannot improve within themselves," she said. Laughter rippled across the hall, but it had a sharpness that revealed the court's insecurity more than true humor. The human delegation shifted uneasily, yet Leon raised a hand subtly to hold them still. He did not want hostility to grow. From a single insult, Reali took his calm as proof of weakness. She lifted her chin and gave a smile that was almost ceremonial. "Remove your armor. If you are proud of your kind," she demanded. Her advisors stiffened at her command, for the request carried insult and Selentho etiquette. She expected him to refuse so she could declare humans unworthy of equal negotiations. Leon listened without changing expression. He did not care about her judgment, yet he cared deeply about the mission that could save thousands on both sides. Humans had arrived not for glory, but for cooperation, slowly, without a word. Leon unlatched the armor and set each piece down quietly. The hall fell silent as the silver plates touched the stone floor, once free of the armor. He stood in simple gray uniform, unadorned and humble in appearance. Reali expected him to look frail, but instead she found him composed in a way that made his simplicity feel like strength. Leon bowed once more, a gesture of respect rather than submission. Then, still silent, he turned and walked toward the exit of the hall. His steps echoed across the stone, each one steady and unwavering. The Selentho courtiers watched him go with a mix of confusion and discomfort. Reali felt a strange tightness in her chest, a sensation that grew sharper with each step he took away from her. His silence had done more than any argument could. The human commander called out to him, but Leon did not stop. He had decided there was no point continuing a negotiation without mutual respect outside the palace. Twin suns cast golden light over the crystalline plains, and Leon breathed deeply. He felt neither shame nor anger, only disappointment that such a crucial meeting had been derailed by mockery. He began making his way toward the shuttle station, ready to report the failure and prepare for possible conflict inside the hall. Reali stood frozen. Her advisors whispered urgently, warning her that she had jeopardized diplomatic progress. The Selentho frontier was weakening due to hostile fleets pressing from the outer void, and they needed allies. Reali's pride had blinded her to necessity. Her chest tightened again. This time with regret, she realized that Leon's Silence was not cowardice, but restraint born from responsibility. She dismissed the court with a single command and hurried toward the exit rail, found Leon walking along the pale crystal road that stretched toward the transport docks. She called his name, but he did not respond. She quickened her steps, her robe brushing against the ground with growing urgency. When she reached him, she stepped in front of him to block his path. Leon paused, but kept his eyes lowered politely. For the first time that day, Riali felt uncertain. "I spoke without wisdom," she said. Her voice lacked the ceremonial tone she used before. He watched her quietly. Waiting, she continued, "I misjudged your people because I have lived too long in a hall where echoes of old pride drown out reason." Leon remained silent. Allowing her to speak, Riali took a slow breath. "I saw your calm and thought it emptiness. But it is strength I have not learned." She admitted her words came with difficulty. Yet they held sincerity. Leon finally spoke, his voice steady. "Respect is the foundation of alliance," he said. "Without respect, agreements crumble before they begin." Riali nodded, her eyes dimming with humility. "I understand now," she replied. She met his gaze and added, "I ask you to return to the hall. Not for my sake, but for the sake of both our worlds." Leon studied her for a moment, then gave a small nod. He turned back toward the palace, walking beside her, though no words passed between them when they re-entered the hall. The courtiers straightened anxiously. Riali raised her hand for silence. "I spoke unjustly earlier," she announced. "I allowed pride to obscure wisdom." The hall stirred with surprise. For Salantho royalty rarely admitted fault. Riali continued, "This human soldier demonstrated greater discipline than I did, and I offer respect where it is due." Leon stood quietly as she spoke, simply observing without reaction. Negotiations resumed with newfound caution, but also mutual understanding. Human engineers shared data on shield harmonics, while Salantho scientists offered insights into energy crystal structures. The tension of earlier faded slowly as cooperation replaced arrogance. Leon contributed practical tactical knowledge without boast or aggression. Riali found herself listening closely, realizing that his simplicity had depth she had overlooked over the following days. Leon worked closely with Salantho specialists to adapt defensive systems. The outer void threat loomed near, and an attack could come at any moment. During these sessions, Riali observed him from a distance before gradually joining the discussions. She found herself asking questions rather than giving commands. Her advisors noticed the change, but dared not comment. Leon rarely spoke unless necessary. Yet, when he did, his words carried weight. Riali gained a new appreciation for humans. They were young compared to ancient empires, yet their determination and adaptability compensated for the lack of long lineage. She watched Leon repair a fiber relay with steady hands while explaining a principle in a calm tone, and she realized that strength could be quiet. Her earlier arrogance seemed childish in comparison. 3 days later, alarms thundered across the palace. Enemy vessels had slipped through the border and launched a swift strike at the Salantho capital. Panic spread as the initial blast shook the defensive grid. Riali rushed to the command center. With Leon arriving moments later, the generals shouted orders, but confusion slowed coordination. Leon stepped forward. "Your shield lines will collapse if the lower crystal banks overload," he said. "We need to redistribute energy flow across the outer channels." The generals hesitated, unused to taking direction from anyone outside their command. But Riali raised her hand. "Listen to him," she ordered. Her authority cut through the chaos. Leon worked quickly with the engineers. He connected human diagnostic devices to the Salantho crystal conduits, adapting readings on the spot. Riali helped reroute power toward the stabilizers, while the engineers followed, Leon's instructions when the second enemy volley hit. The shield held a collective breath filled the room as the crisis-steady Dryle turned to Leon. "Your contribution saved us," she said. He shook his head. "The Alliance saved you," he replied. "Not me alone." Reale understood the meaning. Her pride had once led her to mock him. But humility had allowed the Alliance to exist in the critical moment. The battle continued for hours. Yet with combined human and Selentho strategy, the enemy fleet was forced to retreat when the final hostile ship vanished into the void. The palace erupted with relief. Reale stepped onto the balcony overlooking the crystal plains, feeling the cool air on her face. Leon joined her quietly. "You restored what my words nearly destroyed," she said. Leon looked out across the horizon. "Sometimes words do harm," he said, "and sometimes action mends it." Reale nodded. "I will remember that," she said the following morning. The alliance agreement was finalized. It declared cooperation between humans and Selentho in defense. Science and cultural exchange. Reale signed the document with steady hands. Leon stood by the human delegation, silent as always, yet Reale felt gratitude toward him that words could not fully express. When the ceremony ended, Leon prepared to return to his ship. Reale approached him before he could step onto the ramp. "I once mocked you without understanding your strength," she said. "You answered not with anger, but with dignity." Leon gave a small bow. "Respect must be earned on both sides," he said. Reale smiled, a genuine expression that softened her usually stern features. "It has been earned," she replied. Leon boarded the ship, and the engines hummed as it lifted from the ground. Reale watched it rise into the sky, feeling a mix of admiration and determination across the crystal.